Hey, hello. It is the Go Birds podcast presented by the Bet Parks Sportsbook and Casino app. Elliot Trope Parks, James Seltzer with you. I am incredibly tired today. The only thing that I'm willing to do after my show is talk birds with you, buddy. How you doing?
What up? Well, it is Phillies trade deadline day, so you are Mr. Go
True.
High Hopes pod today. A bunch of different things. Got the big day at McGurk. So I saw you sitting in the breaking news desk, the official Elliott Shore Parks breaking news desk. So I was excited. If anybody's gonna sit there, I don't want it to be Jack. I want it to be you.
That's
so
right.
I was
That's right.
happy to see you hold it down. It's a heavy throne over there by yourself, isn't it?
Oh, you're damn right, buddy. First of all, I was trying to honor you. I did my best. It is weird, like, to be all by yourself in that little like desks, like by everyone's up on the stage and you're like alone.
It feels like you're in the corner, like you've been in trouble
does.
or like a dunce cap or whatever.
Yes. It was very strange and a long day, but I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
We just haven't done anything as of 2/19. So
yes.
Successful, productive day sounds like as well.
Let's talk about the team that does things. Yes. Let's talk about a GM who goes and makes things happen.
Yes.
Look, we'll get in the Reddick thing, but the juices are flowing, buddy. The juices are flowing, like the practice videos, seeing the tweets, like I am feeling it, man. I am so excited to have Eagles football back. I'm ready to race. I know you're not. I'm ready to race through this month and get to football games.
This is my favorite month of the year, so I'm not racing through it. But no, I agree. Like I said that day one of camp, and you're probably feeling this more now because you're very much in Phillies world right now. I've been in Eagles world. So coming out of Phillies world and jumping back into Eagles world, like, yeah, man, this team is awesome. I mean, it shows every day at camp. We're going to get into Jalen Hurts. Like you said, we'll talk about Hassan Reddick, but as much as I love training camp, I love being out there. I don't want it to end. I would have it be 3 months if I could. It's going to be very fun when this team starts playing games that everybody can watch and everybody can react to.
Yeah. I mean, look, you know me, and there are certain things that I am a full-on sucker for. Like, say Dallas sucks to me. Like, yeah, fish, sure. Say Dallas sucks. Yeah, right. Dallas sucks. I'm in. I'm a sucker for hating on Dallas in any way possible. There are certain things. Elliott Shore Parks, when the Jalen Hurts lock screen came out.
Oh, yeah.
Picture of him and that. I was like, I didn't think I could love Jalen Hurts more than I do. Like everything that he does, that if it were another person, I'd be like, oh, cliche. Whatever. It's like it's my favorite thing ever. Like it's all real. I love it. Like
yes.
I can't wait to watch him play football today. And I look at our title there. It seems like you got to watch play football today.
So we'll talk about the screensaver thing, the lock screen. As someone that puts a lot of time and thought into their lock screen, I appreciate using it as motivation. So we'll get into that. But my main message today would be, coming off of day 4 of training camp, Jalen Hurts was unbelievable today. He was 15-17, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, only 2 incompletions. His first throw of the day was a red zone touchdown to Devontae Smith. To Devontae's credit, he did get wide open. Jalen, it was from about the 3-yard line. He rolled over to his right, found Devontae in the back of the end zone for a pretty easy touchdown. There was no one really around him. But his second touchdown of the day was an absolutely beautiful throw. It was actually, he had touchdowns on his first and his last throws of the day. Last throw of the day, A.J. Brown. I thought it was like 40 yards. I saw other beat writers tweet it might have been more like 50 or 60, but it was definitely very long. A.J. was against Darius Slay one-on-one. Good coverage by Slay. A.J. didn't have him like beat by 2 or 3 steps, but A.J. did beat him, and it was a perfect throw. He didn't have to slow down at all, hit him right where he could keep moving, and he went right into the end zone, caught it about pretty much the goal line, maybe the 1-yard line, goal line, something like that, ran it right in. It just really sticks out to me how good Jalen Hurts has been. The first 2 days of camp, he was good. He was smart with the ball. He was taking some risks with it in terms of just trying tough throws. He hasn't really put the ball in harm's way very much. But these last 2 days or 2 days of practice, he has really, really shined. I think he looks – I was debating whether to say this on the pod. I've been thinking about it for the last 2 hours. And you're going to know how much this means to me, like coming from me. So throughout my time covering the Eagles, for me, the gold standard of training camp has always been Carson Wentz 2017. It's where I knew he was going to be elite that year. It was one of the most surgical performances I've seen from a quarterback in training camp. And those 30 touchdowns he threw that year is where I got the bar for the 30 touchdowns in training camp of what I consider a successful camp. Jalen has 4 touchdowns so far. He probably won't get to 30, and there's a long way to go. But through 4 practices, I left practice today thinking we might be watching the new gold standard of a training camp. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, he puts the ball in harm's way. Never. He never makes a bad throw. I like, again, I have him down at like 55 throws or something, and I can think of one that he underthrew. Outside of that, the ball's right where it needs to be. The placement is perfect. If there's nothing there, he's running with it. The touchdown he had to AJ was great. Like, he is really looking like, we've talked a lot about this season and getting over the Super Bowl hump and the pressure that comes with it. And I've been more on that side than you have in terms of just this year is going to be tough. And I'm not backing off of that yet. I'm just saying one thing, if you listen to this pod for a while, you know, is absolute, like, in my core, I believe it. If you have an elite quarterback, you have an elite quarterback. And Jalen today looked like it. Jalen yesterday looked like it. And through 4 practices, he looks like a quarterback that is ready to carry this team right past the Super Bowl kind of hangover thing.
Dude, that's music to my ears. And it's what I expected. You know, I've been very strong. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Like, I keep saying it. I'm very strong in believing that because of Hurts and Sirianni at the top, and we talked about it with Nick last time with the, you know, get it perfect, the hard coaching, all that stuff. These guys, it feels like the leader, you know, and obviously Kelsey and Graham, there are other leaders on this team, but like the quarterback coach, to your point, what you've always said, the NFL, you win and lose based on your quarterback and coach. To have these 2 guys, the way they're driven and motivated, I just think it's like the perfect elixir for coming off a Super Bowl, for coming off a Super Bowl loss, for playing deep into the season. It's the reason that Brady and Belichick were so great year after year after year after year, because those 2 guys were so competitive and so psychotic about being the greatest of all time. And obviously we're a long way from that, but I feel like mentality-wise, that's what Hurts and Sirianni bring.
Yeah, and, you know, we can get into the personality side, but I agree with everything you just said. We can get into that. We talk about the lock screen too, like the thoughts on that. For me right now though, like,
just as a player, you're talking. Yeah,
exactly.
No,
yeah,
I know.
I agree with everything
that's
you're
part
saying.
of it. He's
yeah,
amazing.
100%. But like on the field, he looks like light and day's quarterback better than he was last year in training camp.
Wow.
And last year in training camp, he was, you know, we did daily pods. There were days I didn't think he was that good. There was days he was. I left camp not sure if he was going to take that big leap. He obviously did. So you could look back and go, all right, maybe I misassessed or didn't really, you know, I messed up what I saw. I don't really think that's the case. If you talk to a lot of beat writers about last year in camp, he really wasn't taking a massive step forward. This year, like, it's evident to me. Just the throws he makes are like elite NFL throws. And I'm not talking about, you know, every throw is like 50 yards down the field this way. No, like the throws he's making are just from the pocket, like crossing route. He's in the pocket. The receivers, you know, heading towards like the left sideline. He throws it well. It's a, you know, great anticipation throw. The receiver catches it right before he goes out of bounds. He keeps his feet in, like throws that defenses can't stop. Like just throws it. I don't think there's a defense out there or a cornerback out there that could stop it, because when you have AJ Brown, and I think he's thrown AJ Brown 9 times and only has 1 incompletion. When you're throwing to Devontae Smith, you know, touchdown today, some really nice catches in Sunday's practice. Like when you add those elite receivers with an elite cornerback, their passing game is going to be better this year. We didn't record after Sunday's practice, but DeAndre Swift had a really nice catch down the sideline. It was probably about 40 yards. Nicholas Moreau was on him. Moreau clearly like held his arm to try to pull him down. And Swift still, it was kind of a one-handed catch, like brought in with one hand, made the catch. Goddard is his usual uncoverable self. I think he has 12 catches on 15 targets. Like he's been pretty much, whenever he throws it to him, it's a first down. And while as great as all these skill players are, Hurts taking his game to the next level is making them even better. Like we know AJ's awesome. We know Devontae's awesome. We know these things. But when you add a quarterback that can sit in the pocket and make the tough throws and is willing to make the tough throws, Hurts has always been smart with the ball, and Hurts has always been really safe with the ball. But I'm not saying he's like never taken chances, because he does. But I think so far in training camp, he's been a little more willing to attempt throws I don't think he was taking before. So it's just 4 days of camp. Like we can add all those caveats in, whatever. I'm just saying, when I left practice today and I talked to different beat reporters about it, the consensus was Jalen absolutely crushed it today. And if he can be that quarterback this year, the passing game is going to take a big step forward.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy because, we've talked about Jalen taking another step forward, and we both thought he was going to even before training camp. But it is crazy to think about the leap that he took last year. We've talked about it. We both think the biggest leap we've ever seen a quarterback take in a year. And the fact that, like, to come back to training camp and look better, and that was like the thing that hit me when you said is making throws he didn't make last year. That's exactly how we felt last year. The game started and it's like he's launching bombs to AJ and he's fitting it in tight windows and stuff like that. And we were like, I didn't know he could do that. I hoped he could. I believed in him to work to get there, but I didn't know that was in him. And to hear that he's already taken that next step again this year with trusting it and trusting those throws even more, like, I mean, the sky's the limit for this kid. I honestly believe that. And then again, the decision, man, you talk so much about not putting the ball in jeopardy. And that's one of the great things about him, but it extends across the board with all his decisions. It's not just putting the ball in jeopardy. It's making the right decision. We don't talk enough about, just with the read option alone, the decisions he has to make on every single play and all that he has to take in the moment. He is unbelievable at that. And the more comfortable he gets with the passing game, and all, again, he's turning 25 in a few days. He's not even 25 yet. And you think about the more comfortable, I used this analogy last time or a couple pods ago, but we always talk about Brady and Breeze and, like, can't throw a blitz at them they've never seen, can't throw anything at them. Like, think about how much Jalen still has left to see, and he's already at this level. It's amazing. It's the most exciting thing going on with the Birds right now. The most exciting thing is Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, Brian Johnson talked today before practice and said that, he was asked him, like, what's the difference in Jalen? And he was like, he's got 2 years of film under his belt.
Yep.
And, like, on one hand,
and experience.
On one hand of that is teams have 2 years of film on him. But the other flip side of that is, he has 2 years of film on the other teams, on how teams like to play him, what type of blitzes they like to bring. I do think Swift is going to help them against the blitz. I think that last year they didn't have a receiving back they trusted. We can debate whether I think Miles is probably a little better.
They used Goddard for screens. That was all they needed. It was the only guy they would throw screens to. It's a great point.
Right. So I think Swift is going to help them with that. I mean, we could talk about, we can get into the lock screen now.
Tell me your thoughts on the lock screen. I'm
almost
intrigued.
At a point now, just with the practice thing, where it's like, I don't know what other adjectives to use. Like, he was amazing. I mean, I'll pull up my stats. So far, I have him 48 of 60, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 92 reps. Like, he's just been all close to perfect. So the lock screen. All right, here's all my thoughts on the lock screen, and then you tell me where you fall on it. So I was surprised, number one, when I saw it. I first I was like, nah, this has to be wrong. And then you see it, you clearly zoom in, like, it is that picture of him walking off the screen, walking off the field with all the Kansas City confetti him after the Super Bowl. I was surprised by it. There was someone, I guess, that covers Alabama that said in 2017, I think, after they lost their first championship game, he put a picture of Clemson holding the national championship on his lock phone and talked about how he uses it for motivation. So if you covered Hurts at Alabama, you're probably not surprised to see this. This is something he's done before. We know he's very into motivation, motivational quotes, motivational images. So it's not overly surprising. My take on it is this. I wish that they would just be honest on the podium. And this isn't like access quote, whatever, but I don't know, man. Like, we've talked so much all off season about how the distraction of the Super Bowl is going to impact them. And there are going to be ways where it does, but there is part of me that's like, man, just embrace it. And I think that's what you see with the lock screen, which is Jalen Hurts gets on the podium and says, we're not thinking about last year. This is about this year. Excited to see this team. We're not talking about the Super Bowl. Devontae was asked about the Super Bowl and was like, there's no point in talking about it. Nick Sirianni never wants to talk about it. They had the Super Bowl trophy out at practice on Sunday. They had the NFC Championship trophy out at practice on Sunday. Earlier this offseason, Nick Sirianni gave a press conference with the Super Bowl visor on, and Jalen Hurts has the image of him losing the Super Bowl on his lock screen. So I am okay if they just want to say, yeah, man, we're super motivated by this. We think about it all the time. In fact, Hassan Reddick said today, amongst other quotes, that this one won't get enough attention, but that he keeps his Super Bowl nameplate on the floor of his locker so that he sees it every time he's there as motivation. I don't know what the balance is between it becoming a distraction and it being motivation, But I do think that they could waste so much energy trying not to think about it. Maybe it's better that every time Hurts sees his screen, he thinks about it. Like, I don't know the answer. So on
Well,
one hand,
clearly for Hurts, that's the case. That's why he has it
clearly
as
it's,
the
yeah. So, I mean, you go back and you look, like, I think they did win the national championship the year after. Now, it was the game where Hurts got benched, so you can, give or take that on how it worked out for him. But they did win the national championship the next year. I think where I ultimately fall on it is the whole, like, should they focus on the Super Bowl? Should they not? It's like to each their own. Like, I think everybody has to handle it their own way. However, Nick wants to handle it. Like, I don't think you can be in the meetings using it constantly, but everybody's going to use motivation. They just lost a heartbreaking game. That's the biggest game of their life. Like, it's, traumatic is not the right word because that insinuates, something a little more serious, but it is like a major moment in these guys' lives that shaped them, and every moment in your life shapes you. So when I see the lock screen, I think, okay, like, they're going to use this. And if they think that, if Jalen thinks that that's going to help him, then who am I to tell him it's a distraction that he shouldn't?
Yeah, and look, we keep talking about like referencing the Malcolm thing in 2018, after 2017 season one. Yeah, but it's a very different thing. That was, we won the Super Bowl.
Right.
And we need to get past that move. That game is our reason for this season. That rectifying that,
the
like
reason
changing
for the season.
The reason, right? No, but my guy. But you know what I mean? Like, it is a different thing. There's a difference between being like, oh, 100%. We're the best, and not, as opposed to like, oh, let's use that loss as a way to light a fire under our asses to start this season.
Now the downside to that is, like, if you're using something like that for motivation, it means there's a lot of emotion still attached to it. If they start out 8-0, 7-1, 6-2, like whatever, then okay, like, yeah, it's going great. If
does it start out is the point.
Yeah, if they start out 3-4, does that lock screen give a very different connotation to Hurts? Does the lock screen then become, wow, I might never get back there? Or wow, like, you see Super Bowl paraphernalia around the nameplate for Hassan Reddick. Does it then become something different? So I think that the bottom line is, with all of this, it's like the quote that winning's the ultimate deodorant. Like, there is still a stink left over from losing that Super Bowl. It hurts. I'm sure people are mad about it. I'm sure deep down, each person has their own emotion as to why it happened. And as long as they're winning, it's not going to matter. Like, like last year went perfect. AJ, didn't get as many targets maybe as he would have liked, but you never heard about it because they were winning, right? Hassan Reddick had a contract last year that he outperformed. We didn't hear anything about it really because they were winning. So if they can win this year, and even the biggest pessimist has to feel like more than likely they'll win at least 9 or 10 games. Like, they'll be a playoff team. So that'll help. But just the question is, if things do get ugly, if they do lose week 1, like that's my only worry. For someone that like Nick Sirianni, that we know is so emotional, someone like Jalen, who's clearly using this as motivation, I hope that if things go poorly, that would be the concern, that it becomes like something that festers up quickly from the bottom to the top.
All right. And we'll be back with another pod tomorrow, a longer pod. We'll get into more of the stuff that Elliot saw at practice, all that. We just wanted to get to you today, talk about the Hurts stuff, talk about how great he was, and talk about the Hassan Reddick thing. Because I think, look, you were really the first kind of voice that I heard kind of mentioning this as a thing. Hey, Reddick's incredibly underpaid. He would be making 2.5 times what he's making if he were a free agent right now. And look, wasn't around a ton for OTAs, has been there, but not really practicing the groin. I don't know if that's real or not, whatever it is, but then gets asked about it today. And basically is like, you see it,
yeah.
What'd you make of the whole thing? And again, like, it jives with where you kind of been at. What do you make of what he had to say today and where it goes from here?
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, and you could say this for a lot of players, but I think in a world where he got what he wanted, he would have a new contract. I think he outplayed his contract last year. He had the most sacks of any player in the NFL. Obviously, he played more games than some players, but he did end the year with the most sacks of any player in the NFL. He was their best edge rusher on a unit that almost set the NFL sack record for sacks. And he is not at a point in his career where he can sit for 2 more years. Like, he's not old yet, but he is not in his youth either. I don't think. I think he's like in his prime / like,
this next contract should be his biggest contract. It should be his biggest. Like, this is his biggest payday coming.
Well, but I think that's probably the worry for him.
Of course it is. As soon as he stays healthy,
exactly.
Stay healthy and have a good year and all that stuff.
Now, to his credit, he talked today. I thought he did a good job of balancing between, I think it'll come across if you look at the quotes and the videos, but like being there, and I don't want to put words straight up in his mouth, but it's pretty clear he's not happy he didn't get a new contract, right? Like he said, you see what it is. And he also went, and this wasn't in relation to the contract, but he gave this long answer about how, he's kind of tired of always having to defend his name. He's tired of always seeing himself outside of the top 7 edge rushers. He's tired of not being viewed as one of the best, despite the fact he puts up numbers. He said something to the effect of, look, if you don't know how good I am at this point, then I'm questioning if you know football. Like he definitely stood there today and like flexed a little bit and said, look what I've done. Look what I've accomplished. I am, he talked about how he wants to make the Hall of Fame. Like he is at a different point in his career than he was 2 years ago. And with the contract, I think he realizes that his value is at an all-time high. If he was a free agent, he probably would have gotten the biggest contract non-quarterback of any player this offseason.
I think definitely would have. Yeah, definitely.
Now, maybe teams sit there and go, it was like the system, whatever, who knows? But bottom line is this. He was number 1 in the NFL in sacks, and he's 24th in total value. To his credit, he seems right now to be willing to be, and he's there, to not make this a distraction. He talked really highly of Nolan Smith. He was at practice today, watching him interact. I remember when Zach Ertz was unhappy. Ertz wasn't mean to his teammates by any stretch, but I think Ertz took the field with the idea of like the blonde hair, the inside out shorts, of like causing a bit of a distraction to the best he could, to the best of Zach's ability. Some people just aren't meant to do it. I would never be able to do a holdout. But Hassan Reddick, Hassan Reddick to me on the field looks like he is engaged. He's practicing, he's laughing, he's stretching, he's doing all those things. I think he used this chance to sit there and go like, yeah, of course I'm underpaid. Look at me. Of course I'm underpaid. But I think he knows he's probably not going to get a new deal. And so he's here. So I think it's kind of like the Super Bowl thing in a way. If they're winning and Hassan Reddick's getting a lot of sacks, I think everything's going to be okay. Will he, in the back of his head, maybe use motivation of proving people wrong still? Of course. Will he, next year, like definitely going to want a contract? Like, yeah, for sure. But on the same thing, like if they're losing, if they're 3-4, if Nolan Smith is taking some of his snaps, if, those things start to happen, then yeah, that I think it's clear that there is anger currently in Hassan Reddick. He's just pushing it down right now for the betterment of the team. And, so he's not fined.
And shout out to him. And look, he doesn't have a ton of leverage at this exact moment. You know what I mean? Like, unless he is willing to get fined and miss games, and really hold out, which he clearly didn't. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of leverage right now.
So I agree with you that the Eagles have the leverage in the way that they can fine him and they dictate whether they give him a new contract.
They need him. He's an important player. I'm not saying he has no leverage. I'm just saying he doesn't have a ton of leverage right now.
I'm just curious from your perspective. You talk to more fans in the city than anybody, at very least Tide, right? Like, what do you think the reaction would be if he held out? Like, if he didn't show up to camp, if he still wasn't there, don't you think the reaction would be, Howie, pay this guy? You're a Super Bowl contender. Get him back in the building. Like, so I agree with you. He doesn't have a ton of leverage, but I also think that if he were to actually hold out, I think he would get a new deal.
Well, probably. I think there would be mixed reaction. I think there would be some people saying, hey, you just signed a contract last year, 1 year, you're going to pull this a year into it. I think there's a large portion, or at least a sizable portion of the fan base that would react that way. Look, I've always, and we've talked on this pod for years now, like I'm pretty strong on not getting on NFL players for wanting more money in a macro sense. Like, these guys have a very finite amount of time to utilize the best skill, the best money maker they'll ever have in their lives. By far,
will never be higher.
Like, and this is it. Like, again, by the time he's 35, like, he could not be able to do what his life's passion is, and all that stuff. His skill, his best way to make money, all that stuff. So, like, I get it, and they put their bodies on the line and all that. So, like, I'm not going to rip him for that, and he's way underpaid. But I also understand that, hey, you just signed a contract last year, like 1 year ago, like play one more year in the contract, whatever. I think if I had to bet on how this plays out, I think that Howie and him have talked, and I think that Howie can't promise him anything, but I think Howie's like, listen, man, like, we love you. We want you here. And I think it's one of those situations where Howie does the middle of the season thing, where he can kind of maneuver the salary cap with the money a little bit more. And we know that Howie loves to sign guys to long-term deals during the season. I feel like almost every year, not last year, because they want to mess with the vibe, he said. But like, that's something that Howie does every single year
in the past, absolutely.
In the past. So like, if I had to bet on how this plays out, that's my bet that Reddick gets signed in season. But look, I think to the way it's playing out, the fact that he's here right now, like he's going to go out and play right now. I think, and I think that's what it is.
Oh, he's definitely going to go out and play.
Yeah.
Like whether this is a hold in, some people have called it in terms of just the fact that he was here but not practicing. That is possible. Maybe he's trying to show that a little bit. One interesting thing people have like said to me or highlighted to me is if you give Reddick a new deal, like what about AJ? AJ had a massive year last year. He is 1 year into a big extension. And for what it's worth, I think they have.
Well, he got more money. He got more money, though.
That's what I was going to say.
Extra 10 mil a year and an extra year of that.
And he is among the top of the league at his position. I've not looked.
And AJ's younger too. Like he has more years of money making ahead of him.
Right. So I definitely agree with the premise of it's a 1 year in. And like, look, like not to defend the team, but the team's perspective is we gave you a big contract. Like,
what's the point of giving that contract if we can't get value on it?
Right. Exactly.
Like if you're the team, you're like, I give you that contract because I believed in you. I thought you would outperform the contract. So that's why we did it.
Right.
So
it was a bit of a gamble they took. Yes. I mean, we talked last year when they signed him about how I remember sitting here with you and saying, well, not literally right here because we're in the studio, but I remember sitting and going, it's kind of weird he didn't get a ton of money with all the production he has. Like back-to-back double-digit sack years at his age, you would think he would have gotten a lot more money. So clearly the league also wasn't as high on Reddick in terms of giving him a ton of money. That's why, although I do agree he would make a ton of money as a free agent, I'd just be interested to see because last year he was a free agent. He was coming off double-digit sacks.
He was this past year though was like easily the best.
100%.
Yeah, he took a lead.
100%. But so I would say in most instances, I am, I have a pretty clear, like I'm on this person's side of this. I am like 80% on Reddick's side, 20% on the Eagles.
I think I'm right there. I think that's probably like 75, 25, something like that.
But if Reddick held out, I wouldn't be on the pod saying this is selfish. You signed a 1 year deal. Like I
get it.
I've said it before. I'm not a great negotiator. I wouldn't have it in me to hold out. But if you're Hassan Reddick, like the benefit of holding out for 2 weeks and causing a ruckus and all this could be an extra like $6 million.
No, you're right. It could be even more. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And it's security and it's not having to play half a season to try and earn it, to risk your injury, risk this, risk that. Like Reddick's the kind of guy where, a leg injury to a guy like with a speed rush, like there are certain things that like could really hamper his career, Right. So and it's a lot of money on the line. So yeah, I'm with you. I'll be curious I won't kill him. But
last thing to your point about in-season thing, I'll be curious to see if before he takes a field in week 1, if maybe something is done where it's like it's not a new deal. Maybe more of his money gets guaranteed, or like.
So Joe Giglio brought this up on the air today. He said the Trey Hendrickson thing. What Cincinnati just did with them, they had a similar issue where he was outperforming his contract. They added an extra year to the deal and gave him an extra $20 million or whatever. By adding an extra year, they were able to spread it out or whatever. But they just basically gave him another year and a raise, essentially.
Right. I could see them doing something like that. I'll be curious to see how his quotes today go over in the NovaCare. Like I think he handled it about the best he could. Now, look, he could have sat up there and get, no, I'm all good. No worries. I'm here. I'm happy. I signed the deal.
Yeah, but we would have, it'd be ridiculous.
It would have been ridiculous. I agree. Yeah. But I also don't think he did like the sit-ups in the driveway. Like I'm underpaid, pay me. So I think he walked a good line of like sticking up for himself while also not being a distraction.
I totally agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Cause to your point from early on, like right now there isn't a lot wrong with this team.
Right.
I think, both from a roster
right now.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think with another, it goes back to Sirianni and Hurts. I think those guys are really good at setting a culture where, it is somewhat drama free, but it's interesting. The Reddick thing is certainly I think he's going to play. I think ultimately this will all get figured out down the road and all that. He's going to play. So I don't think it'll end up being a huge, issue for the team, but it's the only thing that I look at right now that has the potential outside of injuries or whatever, know?
I agree 100%. So that was probably the big drama that I was surprised he talked, to be honest. I thought maybe we weren't going to hear from
Shocked.
him. Yeah. Shocked. So I'm sure the team is probably happy he did just like get this over with. But we shall see over the next 2 weeks. He'll play, probably won't get a new deal. It'll just be like most things. Is this team going to be good and win? And if they are and they do, then this won't be a problem. But if there's like things festering that could pop up.
All right, let's get to final thoughts. Again, we will be back tomorrow with a longer pod. I texted, I'm letting you know now, Elliot. So I texted Elliot over the weekend that I came up with one of my favorite final thoughts, and it was a very Elliot-like final thought.
So,
well, I'm saving it for tomorrow. I have others for today, but I want to be in studio with you. I want to be able to really get the whole.
Why don't we save all of them for tomorrow?
Okay, well, I could throw. I'll just throw a dumb one out. It's not a dumb one. It's a quick thank you. And this isn't a real shot at Travis Kelce or anything like that. This is more a thank you. As I check my screenshots, so I can find this thing. This is more of a thank you to Jason Kelce. Mm-hmm. As I'm scrolling through ESPN, as I'm now scrolling through my phone just to find it. Here we go. Okay, so I'm scrolling through ESPN and I see this headline. This is just the headline. Kelce to be quote unquote better leader after practice fights. And I just want to say thank you to Jason, because when I saw that headline, I knew it was Travis. I didn't even need to click on it. It's like there's no way on God's green earth that this headline is about Jason Kelce. And it's not to rip Travis. Stuff like that happens. It's more to say that I just love that. I can read a headline like that and see the name Kelce, and I just know it's not Jason.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm so grateful for that guy and what he's. Yes, you know.
For sure.
Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. All right, tomorrow, banger final thought coming. Elliot will think of one. I can't wait for mine. And we will break down the rest of practice from yesterday. We'll get you set up for the rest of the week and all that good stuff. So it's gonna be fun, buddy. Let's go.
Until next time, Let's
go.
You gotta get your Kelly Green thoughts too. I did a whole pod on it.
So
we'll get some of your Kelly Green thoughts.
Kelly Green thoughts coming tomorrow. Until then, he's Adam James.